The most dangerous narcissist you'll ever meet won't strut into the room demanding attention. They won't post selfies every hour or brag about their accomplishments. In fact, they'll do the exact opposite, and that's precisely what makes them so lethal to your mental health. While everyone's learned to spot the grandiose narcissist from a mile away, the covert narcissist operates in the shadows of your life, draining your energy and sanity so gradually that you won't even realize what's happening until you're completely depleted. I'm about to walk you through 5 specific signs that you're dealing with this hidden predator. Signs that psychologists rarely discuss openly because they're so counterintuitive they sound almost impossible. And I need you to watch this without skipping ahead, because these signs build on each other. If you're in a rush, crank up the playback speed, but please don't miss this. What I'm sharing today could literally save you years of confusion and pain. The person you're thinking about right now, by the end of this video, you'll know for certain whether they fit the profile. Let's get into it. They're the perpetual victim in every single story they tell, but somehow you're always left feeling guilty. Picture this. You finally work up the courage to tell them that something they said hurt your feelings. Within 30 seconds, I'm talking half a minute, the conversation has completely flipped. Suddenly you're comforting them about how hard their life is, how sensitive they are, how nobody understands them. You came to address your pain and you're leaving their presence feeling like you're the bad guy for even bringing it up. Sound familiar? Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. The covert narcissist has weaponized vulnerability itself. While the classic narcissist uses aggression and dominance to control you, the covert version uses victimhood as their shield and sword simultaneously. They've discovered that in our current culture, where we're all trained to be empathetic and supportive, playing the victim is actually more powerful than playing the villain. And they're absolute masters at it. Most people think narcissists are incapable of showing vulnerability. That's the dangerous misconception. Covert narcissists are constantly vulnerable, but it's performative vulnerability designed to manipulate you. When they share their struggles, notice how it always serves a purpose: deflecting criticism, gaining sympathy, or making you feel obligated to them. A genuinely vulnerable person shares their pain to connect. A covert narcissist shares their pain to control. Pay attention to this specific pattern over the next 2 weeks. After every single disagreement or moment where you express a need, does the conversation somehow circle back to their suffering? Do they bring up past traumas exactly when you need support? I remember watching a friend try to tell her partner she felt lonely in the relationship. Within 5 minutes, he was crying about his childhood, and she was apologizing for being insensitive. She came for connection and left feeling like a monster. That's sign number 1 in action. So if you've noticed this relentless pattern of reverse victimhood, where your legitimate concerns somehow always transform into their emotional crisis, you've identified sign 1. But here's the thing. This is just their first layer of protection. The next sign goes even deeper. They praise you in ways that somehow make you feel smaller, not bigger. Now this one is extraordinarily subtle, and it's why covert narcissists can operate undetected for years. On the surface, they seem supportive. They compliment you. They acknowledge your achievements, but pay microscopic attention to how they do it, because buried in every compliment is a knife. Imagine you just got a promotion at work, something you've worked toward for 18 months. You excitedly share the news and they say, "Wow, I'm so proud of you. I never thought you'd actually pull it off. You've really grown so much from where you were." Or maybe, "That's amazing. See what happens when you finally listen to my advice." Or the most insidious version, "Congratulations. I'm honestly surprised they chose you over other person. But you must have really impressed them somehow." Here's the weird part about these statements. They contain actual praise. Your brain registers the positive words, proud, amazing, congratulations, but your gut feels wrong. That's because woven into every compliment is an implicit put-down, a reminder of your supposed inadequacy or a claim to credit for your success. The psychological mechanism at work here is called backhanded validation, and it's devastatingly effective. The covert narcissist needs to keep you in a perpetual state of insecurity because secure people are harder to control. But unlike the overt narcissist who will directly insult you, the covert type is far more sophisticated. They've learned that direct criticism makes people defensive and likely to leave. So instead, they season their poison with sugar. They give you just enough validation to keep you seeking their approval, while simultaneously ensuring you never quite feel good enough. Most people think supportive partners and friends celebrate your victories without reservation. They're genuinely happy when you succeed because they love you. But covert narcissists experience your success as a threat. They can't openly tear you down. That would expose them. So they diminish you while appearing to lift you up. Notice how their compliments always include a qualifier for someone like you. Considering where you started, surprisingly, finally. These words aren't accidental. They're precision strikes at your self-worth. Watch this pattern over the next 30 days. Write down every major compliment they give you. Not just the general vibe, but the exact words. When you see them in black and white, the pattern becomes chilling. You'll notice that you can never just be good, accomplished, or worthy in their eyes. There's always an asterisk, always a condition, always a reminder that you're slightly less than. So if you've noticed that their praise leaves you feeling oddly deflated rather than elevated, you've identified sign 2. But hold on, because the next sign is where things get truly disturbing. Sign 3. They remember every tiny thing you've done wrong, but have complete amnesia about their own harmful behavior. This is where the covert narcissist's mental machinery becomes genuinely frightening. They maintain what I call a debt ledger in their mind, a comprehensive, detailed accounting of every mistake you've made, every time you fell short, every moment you weren't perfect. And they will reference incidents from years ago with photographic precision when it serves them. Let me paint you a picture of how this plays out. You bring up something hurtful they said last week, something specific, something you can quote word for word. Immediately they look at you with genuine confusion. I never said that. You're misremembering. You're being too sensitive. But then in the same breath, they'll bring up that time 3 years ago when you forgot to call them back for 4 hours, or when you made a thoughtless comment at a dinner party in 2022, or when you chose to spend time with your sister instead of them during a crisis. The detail is stunning. The emotional weight they still carry about your infractions is palpable. But here's what's really happening in their psychology. Covert narcissists don't just forget their own bad behavior. They genuinely don't process it as bad in the first place. In their internal narrative, everything they do is justified, defensive, or provoked by you. When they insult you, it's because you made them feel bad first. When they give you the silent treatment, it's because you weren't understanding enough. When they violate a boundary, it's because you were being unreasonable about the boundary to begin with. Contrast this with how healthy people handle conflict. In functional relationships, both people can acknowledge when they've caused harm. There's a balance. You remember the time you screwed up, they remember the time they screwed up, and you both work to repair and move forward. But with a covert narcissist, the ledger only runs one direction. You are perpetually in debt to them, perpetually falling short, while they remain the long-suffering saint, enduring your inadequacies. Most people think narcissists are delusional about themselves in obvious ways. They think they're better looking, smarter, more talented than they are. But covert narcissists are delusional in a more insidious way. They genuinely cannot access memories of their own destructive behavior, but they can recall your mistakes with forensic accuracy. It's not that they're lying when they say, "I never did that." Their mind has literally rewritten the history to protect their fragile ego. The specific timeline to watch for: do they bring up your mistakes from 6 months ago, a year ago, even longer, with vivid detail, while genuinely claiming no memory of something harmful they did last week? Do you find yourself constantly defending against accusations about past behaviors while your concerns about their current behavior get dismissed as fabrications? Listen, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to share in Signs 4 and 5 gets into territory that most psychology channels won't touch. This information is the difference between spending years questioning your sanity and finally seeing the truth with crystal clarity. The algorithm shows these videos to people who need them most, but only if you engage. So smash that subscribe button and we'll keep going. Sign 4. They create chaos and confusion, then position themselves as your only source of clarity and stability. This sign represents the apex of covert narcissistic manipulation, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The covert narcissist doesn't just passively damage you, they actively engineer situations that make you depend on them emotionally and psychologically. Here's how the cycle works with brutal precision. First, they create instability in your life. Maybe they give you mixed messages about the relationship, hot and cold, invested then distant. Maybe they subtly undermine your other relationships by planting seeds of doubt. Did you notice how your friend looked at you when you said that? I think she might be jealous. Maybe they create financial stress, scheduling chaos, or emotional turbulence through their unpredictable moods and reactions. The key is that you start feeling off balance, anxious, uncertain about where you stand. Then, and this is the truly diabolical part, they swoop in as your rescuer. When you're spinning from the confusion they created, they become your calm center. They're the one who understands you. They're the one who can decode the chaos for you. They hold you while you cry about how overwhelming everything feels, never once acknowledging that they're the earthquake pretending to be shelter. I need you to take a moment and really sit with this. Imagine a person intentionally making you sick, then positioning themselves as your only medicine. That's what we're talking about here. The psychological term for this is manufactured dependency, and it's one of the most powerful control mechanisms in the covert narcissist's arsenal. Most people think abusive relationships are obviously terrible from the outside, but covert narcissistic relationships often look idyllic to observers because these manipulators are careful to create the chaos privately and provide the comfort publicly. Your friends see them consoling you. Your family sees them being patient with your anxiety. Nobody sees that they're the source of what they're claiming to treat. Here's the specific thing to watch for. Do you feel significantly more anxious, confused, or unstable than you did before this relationship? And has this person become the primary or even the only source you turn to for emotional regulation? Notice if there's a pattern where problems arise, usually connected to their behavior or your interactions with them. You feel completely overwhelmed, and then they're the one who helps you calm down and see things clearly. But you know, their version of clarity always somehow absolves them and centers your inadequacy. The timeline on this is usually about 4 to 8 months into the relationship. That's how long it takes to establish this toxic pattern. In the beginning, you were probably more stable, more confident, more sure of yourself. Now you find yourself constantly seeking their reassurance, their interpretation of events, their approval of your decisions. That shift didn't happen by accident. So if you have noticed that your mental stability has deteriorated since knowing them, while simultaneously becoming more dependent on them for emotional support, you've identified sign 4. But the final sign? This is the one that confirms you're dealing with the deadliest type of narcissist. Sign 5. They punish you with absence and silence, then make you beg for reconciliation on their terms. This final sign is where covert narcissists reveal their true cruelty, and it's the behavior that causes the most lasting psychological damage. Unlike overt narcissists who explode with rage, covert narcissists implode with silence, and that silence becomes a weapon of mass destruction in your psyche. Here's exactly how this plays out. Something happens, often something minor, sometimes nothing you can even identify. Suddenly, they withdraw, not dramatically, not with an announcement. They just fade. Texts become sparse and cold, calls go unreturned. Their energy toward you shifts from warm to Arctic in temperature. If you live together, they're physically present but emotionally absent, looking through you rather than at you. This can last hours, days, or even weeks. The torture of this isn't just the withdrawal itself, it's the ambiguity. They haven't ended the relationship. They haven't stated what's wrong. They've simply removed their presence, leaving you in agonizing limbo. And here's the sickest part. When you finally can't take it anymore and reach out, probably apologizing for something you may not have even done, they act like nothing happened. Or worse, they accept your apology for the transgression they never clearly identified, making you complicit in validating their distorted reality. What most people don't realize is that this is a calculated training mechanism. Every time they withdraw and you chase, you're being conditioned. You're learning that your emotional safety depends on their mood and presence. You're learning to manage their feelings at the expense of your own. You're learning to accept blame just to restore connection. Within 6 to 12 months of this pattern, you'll find yourself walking on eggshells constantly, vigilantly monitoring their emotional state, reflexively apologizing and doing anything to avoid triggering another withdrawal. The biological mechanism at work here is profound. When they withdraw, your brain experiences it as a threat to survival. Humans are wired for connection. We literally need it to thrive. When someone important to us goes silent, our nervous system interprets this as abandonment, triggering the same fear response as physical danger. Your cortisol spikes, your anxiety skyrockets, your brain becomes hyper-focused on restoring the connection. The covert narcissist knows this, even if not consciously, and exploits it ruthlessly. Contrast this with how emotionally mature people handle conflict. They might need space to cool down, but they communicate that. I need a few hours to process this, and then let's talk. They don't leave you dangling in psychological torment. They don't make you grovel for the crime of existing. And they certainly don't train you to suppress your needs and feelings just to maintain peace. Here's the specific pattern that confirms you're dealing with this. Track how conflicts resolve in your relationship. Do you find yourself always being the one to break the silence? Are you constantly making the first move toward reconciliation, even when you weren't clearly in the wrong? Do you apologize more than they do, or even when the original issue was their behavior? And most tellingly, do you feel relief when they finally let you back in, rather than anger at how they treated you? That last question is critical. A healthy person would feel frustration or hurt at being given the silent treatment. But if you've been conditioned long enough, you feel grateful when they finally acknowledge you again. That gratitude for breadcrumbs, when you deserve the full meal of respect and communication. That's the sign you're deep in covert narcissistic abuse. So let's bring this full circle. If you've recognized multiple signs in someone in your life, the perpetual victimhood that makes you feel guilty, the compliments laced with criticism, the selective memory that only remembers your mistakes, the chaos they create while positioning themselves as your stability, and the punishment through silence and withdrawal. You're not crazy. You're not oversensitive. You're not imagining it. You're dealing with a covert narcissist, and it's time to trust what you've been feeling all along. Here's what you need to do right now. First, start documenting. Write down specific incidents with dates and details. Your memory is probably being gaslit, and having a written record will help you trust your reality. Second, Rebuild your support system outside of this person. Covert narcissists isolate you subtly. Reconnect with the friends and family they've edged out of your life. Third, and most importantly, educate yourself. Read books on covert narcissism. Watch more videos like this. The more you understand the pattern, the harder it becomes for them to execute it. I won't lie to you. Recovering from covert narcissistic abuse is a long road. These people damage you in ways that aren't visible to the outside world, which makes healing complicated. But the fact that you're here, that you watched this whole video, that you're willing to see the truth, that's the first and most crucial step. The algorithm tends to show this kind of content to people at the exact moment they need it most. If you found this video, there's a reason. Don't ignore what you now know. Share this with someone who needs to see it. You might literally change their life. And here's the thing about timing. The longer you wait to address this dynamic, the deeper the psychological damage becomes. 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll wish you'd acted on what you're feeling right this second. Subscribe to this channel because next week I'm breaking down the specific strategies for safely extracting yourself from a covert narcissistic relationship and why going no contact with this type is both different and more critical than with other toxic people. This is life-changing information and you don't want to miss it. I'll see you in that next video. Stay strong.